64 from both sides. Do minus 64 on both sides. And you get x squared minus 16x equals negative 40. Alright, next you're going to find what you add to both sides. So it's b over 2 all squared. And b is 16. So it's 16 over 2 all squared, which is 8 squared, which is 64. So add 64 to both sides. Let's rewrite the steps. X squared minus 16x plus 64 equals 20. So factor the trinomial. X minus 8 all squared equals 20. Take the square root of both sides. So x minus 8 equals square root of 20, plus or minus. Alright, so we want to get the x by itself, so add 8 to both sides. And that gives you x equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 20. Simplify your answer, so it's 8 plus or minus the perfect square in 20 is 4 times 5. Alright, so that becomes 8 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 5. And that's your final answer. Let's see, that's completing the square. Go on to number 2. Alright, so number 2. Alright, number 2, you're going to use a quadratic formula. I don't know why. So, 2x minus 6x plus 5. We'll set it equal to 0, whatever. Alright, we're going to do negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times 5 all over 2 times 2. And don't forget to do the additive inverse here so you don't lose your minus. Negative 6 is 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared is 36 plus 4 times 20 minus 40 over 4. By this, so we do 6. Ooh, I hate it when that happens. 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 all over 4. It's just going to be 6 plus or minus. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of a negative is I, all over 4. Now, let's split this into two fractions. 6 over 4 plus or minus 2 over 4i. Now, are we finished yet? So what's 6 over 4 is 3 halves plus or minus 1/2 I. Alright, so you could leave it like that. That would be acceptable. You could get rid of the 1 on top right here. Oops. You get rid of that 1 if you want and just do 3 halves plus or minus I over 2 on top. So you could do, that's an answer right there. That's an acceptable answer. Or you could just put it all over 2. The place I got this problem had this is the answer right here. But that would work, or that. This one we're going to identify the roots. Out of 5 and an x squared. That leaves me with x to the second minus 4x plus 4 equals 0. All right, then we can factor that guy right there to 5x squared is x minus 2 all squared equals 0. So this means 5x squared, x minus 2, x minus 2. Oops. Change that to a 2 equals 0. So we have two equations here, 5x squared equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. You solve this, you get x equals 2. You solve this, you get x equals 0. So 2 is a solution to this and that, so it appears 2 times. Now this other thing I don't think anyone got. Actually, one person did. I can't remember who. What's the multiplicity of 0? Multiplicity of 2 is 2 because it is squared. So that makes multiplicity is 2 because of the exponent. All right, any questions? There's 4 terms, so I'm going to use grouping. So we'll group these two together and these two together. And I hate that, but anyway. It's going to be x squared out here, x plus 1 minus 9, x minus 3. That is totally screwed up. That should be a 3 right here. My mistake. And that should be a plus because he took out a negative. We do all that stuff. Anyway. So it's like that. So we get x squared minus 9 and x plus 3. A perfect square, you got to do x minus 3, x plus 3. That's what this part factors into, that. And then the x plus 3 here. Now, some of you changed it. You could also have written your final answer like this, x minus 3, x plus 3 squared. Now, if I missed that on somebody's test, it was because it was an exponential, so it's 6.08 billion. It's 1.21%, and it's 20 years. Now, so many of you asked me, what do I do with a billion? Do I have to write it all out? You should know that already. So it's y equals a1 plus or minus. In this case, it's a increase, so it's plus r to the x. Watch, please. It's 6.08 billion. I'm just going to leave that as 6.08. 1 plus, you have to take your rate, and I said this a million times, and change it to a decimal. So you move it over twice. It's 0.0121 to the 20th. A lot. So you get 6.08 times 1.0121 caret 20. You put that in your calculator, and you get 7.73. Now a lot of you just write billion, and that's your answer. The only mistake I saw people make was not changing that to a decimal. This in, you get f of x equals, initial is 3,000. I'm going to change this to a decimal right here. So it's 1 plus 0.3 is 1.3 to, we don't know the x. So for those of you that were paying attention, like I said, This is supposed to be 3,000. You subtract because it's a rate of decrease. I don't know why someone wrote that. So it's 0.7 to the x is f of x. All right. The equation is 1850 equals 3,000. 0.7 to the x. Now, we don't to put it in your calculator, you would do y1 equals 3,000, 0.7 caret x. y2 would be 1850. All right, what would I zoom 9, which is fit. Zoom 0, like I said, is fit, and zoom out until you can actually see everything, which is 3. You got to enter twice after that. Then you do second, trace, intersect, enter 3 times, and you got x equals 1.36. Is that right? 36. Oh, I hate it when it happens. Years. Or 1.4.